excitement around Quinten Post is certainly there, and much more so in a way that you'd usually expect from a 52nd overall pick, right? Usually these guys, you think, oh, yeah. Well, first of all, a lot of guys in the 50s, go overseas and like draft and stash guys like Keith Santos was for the Warriors. But otherwise, a lot of guys are like, in the 50s, you think that they're going to be spending a fair chunk of time in the G League developing, which is certainly could be the case for Quinten Post. There's no doubt about that. But he is 24 years old. He's got that plethora of college experience, and he's just a completely unique prospect on this Golden State roster. And I think that's why there's so much intrigue, so much fascination in him, his potential, what he could become, because it's completely different to whatever else the Warriors have on their roster. And it's actually like, even thinking about it further than that, it's more like it's unique to anything the Warriors have really had for quite some years. Like, this is an offensive-minded center. And the Warriors, the system that they play, where clearly they play from the guard positions, from the wings, Steph, Clay, KD during the prime years, whatever else, they've always had that, Draymond, first and foremost, is a defensive-minded guy at the 4 position, but then at the 5, they've also had a defensive-minded guy, whether it be going back to Andrew Bogut, now Looney, Festus Ezeli, JaVale McGee, Zaza Pachulia, like whatever else, all these guys, they're usually defensive-minded guys who their main asset offensively is probably passing the ball more than anything, and screen setting as well, and getting those other guys open. So it's going to be interesting now to have a guy who can actually be a play finisher, who can obviously, like he showed in college, he can shoot the shit out of the ball, 43.1% with Boston College last season. He also showed that he can get to the basket a little bit. Nice couple of plays in Summer League where he kind of pump faked on the 3 and drove to the basket. So, super fascinating player for the Warriors. Doesn't mean it's going to work out. Doesn't mean he's going to be a rotational player this season or at any point in his career. But I think just to kind of demonstrate the interest in this guy, Steve Kerr had a quote in a recent interview with Tim Kawakami, where he was talking about Jonathan Kuminga, and of course a lot of talk this offseason about whether Jonathan Kuminga can play at the small forward spot for the Warriors this season. Steve, in response to that, said, he's definitely a small forward if we've got a shooting 5 out on the floor, right? Okay, so if that's the case, and Kuminga can only be a small forward with a shooting 5 out there, then doesn't that mean that the only way Kuminga can play at the 3 is if Post is also on the court? Because there is no other shooting 5 on the Warriors roster. Unless, are we claiming that Draymond's a shooting 5? I'm not even sure he's a 5. Like, he's a 4. He's a power forward. He's might start at the 5 for the Warriors this season. Doesn't mean he's necessarily a 5. And do we call Draymond a shooting 5? Because, yes, he does shoot the ball more than other non-shooting big men. But teams don't necessarily guard him. And therefore, are we calling him a shooting 5? I don't think we necessarily are. So if that's the case, and I mean, Loon has said he wants to shoot 3s this season. We'll wait and see. Like, we got to see it first before we believe in that. TJD maybe doing the same thing. Haven't heard too much about that, but possibly it'd be nice if he brought that to his game. But really, right now, like, Post is the only genuine shooting 5 on the roster. And so this essentially means, like, if Steve's saying that just goes to show you the level in which Post could impact the Warriors. Because having that shooting 5 could unlock so many different lineups for Steve Kerr. And